No, you're right. Our call was for OPEC to pause the scheduled increase of 400,000 barrels a day for the month of January in anticipation of more clarity over the Omicron variant. But they decided not to do that. Quite often in OPEC, there can be a bit of inertia in the sense that it's hard to reach agreements, and changing an agreement always requires unanimous support. So perhaps we underestimated a bit sort of the inertia in the system. Sticking to the current position is always the easiest. OPEC did leave the door open fully to react very quickly. So in that sense, they're still signaling that they are, on the ball, monitoring market conditions very closely. But yeah, instead of the pulse that we forecast, we are having OPEC continuing what they said they would do, with keeping an eye on the ball, so to say.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant comment, Martin. I haven't seen anyone else. The inertia in decision-making, we see that in many boardrooms, don't we? So look, there are many oil prices out there. There is the oil price, of course, the spot price. There is the futures curve, which indicates a lot about the future demand. There is the price that you and I have talked about, which is the balancing of budgets for a lot of these, and the price where you overcook the world economy. Is it that the price that the oil majors want, which is somewhere up here for balancing their budgets, and actually the price which is going to overcook the economy given concerns about Omicron and now others, there's just such a divergence at the moment? Are they happy for the short term to keep it around these levels, even though longer term we know they want it 10 to 15 bucks higher?
Yeah, I think in the long run they want it a little higher, and I think ultimately we will get there in the sense that sort of OPEC will support the trajectory higher. Partly because the capex response so far has been so minimal. So I think what OPEC will over time sort of try to do is sort of nudge it a little higher to the point where more investment is forthcoming. But that doesn't seem to be the case yet. That wasn't clearly the case over the last couple of months when we had oil well into the 80s. And I think ultimately OPEC also wants to, sort of extract as much economic rent out of their resources as they can, and I think they'll try to find that edge where they get a high price, but the demand destruction doesn't kick in, and the non-OPEC supply response sort of isn't quite there yet. And I think that price lies above where we are now. That said, though, in the short run, I think one of the things that yesterday also revealed is that perhaps in the end OPEC is a little bit more sensitive to pressures from the U.S. government, who clearly tried to put pressure on OPEC over the last couple of weeks to cool down the oil market a bit. It didn't look like OPEC was so sensitive to that, but perhaps yesterday's decision could also be seen in the light of that pressure, perhaps having a little bit more effect sort of in the short run.